Hello, this is Michael Kraut from Idea Dudes, and we're going to talk about administering software licensing.
The unauthorized reproduction or distribution of this copyrighted work is illegal. Criminal copyright infringement, including infringement without monetary gain, is investigated by the FBI and is punishable by up to 5 years in federal prison and a fine of $250,000.
If you have any questions or comments, you have the GoGo box at the bottom of the video. Let's get started. So the module topics we're going to be looking at is a client access license. And what a client access license is, this gives us the ability of connecting to a Windows Server 2003. A per server licensing, which what this means is how many licenses are going to be, or how many connections can we have per server. And then we have per device or per user licensing, and this applies to the actual devices or users that are connecting to the server. And then we have administering licensing we'll be talking about in this module, licensing tools that we can use, and then finally you're going to have a lab exercise. So we're talking about CALs, and a CAL stands for Client Access License. So the client access license, what it allows us to do is be able to connect from a client to the server. So there's two types of CALs that we do have. We have Windows device CALs, and when we talk about Windows device CALs, these are actual client access licenses that are connected to the actual devices, such as the computers and the operating system. So the Windows 2000, XP, Vista, Windows 7, they all have inherent CALs. So that gives them the right to connect to the Windows Server 2003. But what we have is per server licensing, and per server says, okay, this is the maximum connections that we can have. So the Windows device CALs, if we have 1,000 CALs, client access licenses, only 1,000 devices can connect. So when 1,001 tries to get the connection, they'll be denied access. Then we also have the user CALs. And the user CALs are the client access licenses assigned to the user. Now we could have 1,000 user CALs, but actually have 2,000 users connecting to the server. And how does that work? Well, as soon as a user gets off, another user can get on. So this is how we can save money for the company by using the user CALs. And we have the ability of making a determination on what type of licensing that we want to use. And we'll show you where that is later on. So the server license, that is the license that says you can use this software. So you have to have a license for each server that you install. So if you have 5 servers that are installed on a virtual machine, for example, then you have to have 5 licenses for those Windows 2003 servers. So each server that you install must have a license. Allows installation of the software on the server. That's what a server license is. So we have per server licensing. User device CAL required for all the connections. 1,000 CALs, 1,001 is denied access. Also used for limited access to small amounts of servers. So if you have large amounts of servers, then we want to use the user CALs. If you want to provide access to a limited amount of servers, then you want to use a per server licensing. Less cost effective when multiple users access multiple resources on multiple servers. Unsure, then select per server, because per server is actually the default for the licensing of the Windows 2003 server. One-time conversion can be done where you can do a per server to per user. If you do a per server to per user and you want to change back to per server, then what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to reinstall the operating system. And what this will do is reset all of the settings for that server. So let's recap. Per server licensing is limited access to small amounts of servers. It's less cost effective when multiple users access multiple resources on multiple servers. So take a scenario where you have a bunch of servers out there. Maybe they're web servers, maybe they're SQL servers, and you want to give access to those different servers. Well, per server licensing is going to not be your best option because it's less cost effective when multiple users access multiple resources on multiple servers. Again, if you're unsure, then select per server. One-time conversion can be done from per server to per user. And this is very important to remember because if you don't remember this, you make your change and you want to make a change back, then you're going to have to wipe the operating system. And that's a lengthy process. So when you're looking at server licensing, the per server licensing may be your best option, it may not. You just have to weigh the situation to figure that out. So per device or per user licensing, each device that connects to the server must have a CAL. Distributed computing environment. This is where we have multiple users connecting to that same machine. So you may have shifts. We may have 3,000 shift workers, but only 1,000 licenses. And we can get by with that because all we have is we have 1,000 people or 1,000 licenses being used at each time. As soon as somebody gets off, another one can get on. So that's how you can make it cost effective with licensing. Now you got to understand that the licensing course that we're talking about or the information that we're going over right now, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's actually a whole certification on licensing. Licensing can be one of the most confusing parts of a Windows Server 2003 installation and any of our deployments of our servers. So we do have some licensing tools that we can use. There's two tools. We have the licensing and the control panel, and we also have the licensing and administrative tools. Now, when you're administering licensing, the licensing logging service, what it does is it runs on each computer running Windows Server 2003. It tracks licenses when the server resources are accessed. So what it looks at is it queries and says, okay, how many licenses do I have? And how many connections do I have? If we have 1,000 licenses and somebody tries to connect 1,001, then it's going to query the logging service. The logging service, well, the licenses come back and says, I only got 1,000, so 1,001, you're not going to be able to connect. Replicate it to a site license server. And so we'll have a site license server that we can implement throughout the whole enterprise. And this will keep track of all the licenses. Now the licensing tool and the administrative tools, you can see, it gives us a purchase history, a listing of which servers we have out there, and how many licenses there are currently available, and what's the quantity. Then we can go in, and the product views, we can see which products that we have installed. So Microsoft Back Office, and we have Windows Server. So you can see per device and per use, 25, and per server purchase is 25. So it's showing you how many licenses we do have, and then it'll show you how many are actually allocated. And you can see right now we don't have any licenses that are allocated. So this is the tool that we're going to use to be able to track the actual licensing. When we go into the clients, it'll show you which is the username, the licensed usage, the unlicensed usage, and the products. And so this will give us an overall view of the clients that are connecting to the Windows Server 2003 server. And then we have the server browser, and this is where we can go in and we can look at what are the different servers that we do have and we can go into the properties of that server and we can make the changes to the licensing. And remember, we have per server, per user, per device. We can make the change only once from per server to per user. So if you practice, exercise 1, download and extract service packs. Exercise 2, deploy the service pack with group policy. Exercise 3, configure automatic updates. And the time is 45 minutes. Do you have questions? Use the question comment box. Thank you for joining us.